Don't forget that this broadcast is also funded and financed by the listeners buying books, videos, Patriot T-shirts, all available at Infowars.com. All of my films that I want you to get, I want you to make copies, I want you to give them to your friends and family, I want you to air them on Access TV. It's having such a huge effect through the grassroots. And then there's also PrisonPlanet.tv with the video streams of the show, the higher quality video archives, the commercial-free podcast, all of it at PrisonPlanet.tv. 15 cents a day, $5.95 a month. All the special reports and so much more we're adding there. Now, shifting gears to Webster Tarpley. He is the author of George Bush, the unauthorized biography. He also wrote the unauthorized biography on Barack Hussein Obama and is one of our chief experts in my seminal film, The Obama Deception, laying out everything that Obama would do, and he indeed did do it. People see Obama Deception, they're totally blown away. He also has multiple degrees from Princeton, summa cum laude, and Pi Beta Kappa, Fulbright scholar, University of Turin, Italy. He is a doctor of history, fluent in German, French, Latin, Russian, you name it. He's a decades-long expert on international terrorism. He did a major study for the Italian Parliament. I'm going to stop right there. Tarpley.net is his website. And for those that just joined us, Webster, all Hades is breaking loose. We see major global geopolitical realignments. We see massive saber rattling everywhere. We have the Chinese saying, you've already technically defaulted. You've got Vietnam starting to move towards the U.S. You've got Pakistan running to China and Russia. You've got the Russians openly threatening. I mean, things are really coming to a head. What is behind all of this? What's behind the Pakistanis arresting the CIA spies inside Pakistan? What's going on? I mean, am I right in saying that we've moved a few more minutes towards midnight on the World War III clock?
Yes, you're certainly right. And it is, of course, this decadent, degenerate U.S. Ruling class which is doing all this. This is the initiative, at least, is coming from them. It's a desperate attempt to reorganize the world by destroying most of the existing nation states and really destroying any possible focus of resistance against the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and the World Trade Organization. I guess, and you're certainly right, that things have gotten much worse in the past 2 to 3 weeks. Just for those who are keeping score, we're now up to 5 wars. We have Afghanistan, Iraq. We have a latent war with Pakistan, which is probably the biggest of these at the moment, which is always on the verge of becoming an open shooting war. We've got a war with Libya, and just in the past couple of weeks, we've added the war with Yemen, which is a joint special operations command and CIA headquarters operating in the capital. Now that the U.S. has succeeded in pretty much destroying the government of Yemen, you're going to have Apache helicopters flying over there, as well as the drones run by the CIA, as well as the military. So that makes 5. Now, likely number 6 is Syria. If Syria comes, it's likely to come with 2 others. If you're at war with Syria, you will probably soon be at war with Iran and with Hezbollah. So that will get us up to 8. And we've also, as you're pointing out, tensions now directly with the major nuclear power out there in the world, which is, of course, Russia. Now, just a couple of news updates. According to a number of intelligence sources, there is now a build-up around Syria. We've had the crescendo of this destabilization of Syria. I regard this as commandos of the Muslim Brotherhood, probably armed through the Kurdish part of Iraq. If you look at your map, you'll see that the Kurds in northern Iraq would be able to smuggle things into Syria, possibly also smuggled in through Jordan and other channels. So we've got the USS Bataan, the amphibious assault ship, is standing by in the Mediterranean off the coast of Syria. Remember also, you've got the British base on Cyprus, which can be used, so you don't need to have an aircraft carrier there. The U.S. right now has 2 aircraft carrier battle groups, but out in the Arabian Sea, pretty much off the coast of Yemen and off the coast of Saudi Arabia. So there could be a military move by the U.S. against Syria at any time, and this could come in surprising forms. We know that the capabilities are there. one of the main targets of this, of course, is that the Russians have a naval base at Tartus. The only real interesting base that the Russians have in the Mediterranean is in Syria. So if you do go ahead and attack Syria, you're going to get Russia into it much more directly. And all this nonsense about the reset and these things that Medvedev has been saying about singing tomorrows between the U.S. and Russia, this turns out to be quite false. Now, Iran is already accused by Hillary Clinton of having sent military forces into Syria. This would be the Quds force, the Jerusalem force of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards. They are presumably already acting to shore up the Assad regime in Syria. Hezbollah from Lebanon is also reported to have sent forces into Syria. Now, if you get a certain amount of Iranian and Hezbollah forces into Syria, this could then be used by the Israelis as a pretext to start something, or the U.S. could seize on it. We had a very rare speech by Hillary Clinton where she condemned two countries at the same time. She condemned Syria and Iran in the same breath. So this is about as tense as it can get. And you've also got to remember that Turkey, sitting on the northern border of Syria, this is, of course, a NATO country. Up to now, the policies of Turkey have been relatively reasonable, actually promising and positive in some cases. But what happens to Turkey when they're threatened by a tide of refugees is certainly another question. So you have this entire complex. Now, to the degree that the U.S. has been fomenting this insurrection through the Muslim Brotherhood in Syria, I think you can also say one of the ways the Iranians have been striking back is to heat up the situation in Iraq. And if you look, we're getting more and more reports of attacks by Shiite militias, by the Mahdi army on U.S. forces in Iraq. And the casualty lists have gone now sky high in the month of June. I think that's a kind of retaliation by the Iranians to what they can obviously see the U.S. is doing in Syria. All made much more complicated by the presence of yet another controversial warship, the USS Monterey. This is an Aegis cruiser with anti-ballistic missile capabilities that's sitting in the Black Sea, and the Russians, as you mentioned, have been vociferously protesting that. Now, it's not clear whether that warship there violates any treaty. The treaty would be the Treaty of Montreux, which governs who can get through the Bosporus and the Dardanelles, the so-called straits between the Mediterranean and the Black Sea. But this warship there would be in a position to try to do some anti-ballistic missile work, say, if Iran were retaliating against European NATO countries taking part in an attack on Iran. That's
so
one
the point
way
is,
of looking at it.
Webster, to interrupt you for a moment, is that the pieces are all actually being put in place for the first time in memory. Not even Bush did this, to really have a large regional war spreading from North Africa into the Middle East, into Central and Southern Asia. That would, if this continues, this could really be called a third world war that is being kicked off in the name of anti-terrorism. And then you've got as the players, Muslim brigades, known Saudi Arabian-backed al-Qaeda as the good guys, working in countries that have already fallen, like Egypt, to a certain extent Yemen, also going up into Syria. It's those groups, same groups against Gaddafi. And I hear good old boys on the radio going, well, I guess al-Qaeda's good. We've got to work with them now. And then now we're un-American because we don't support al-Qaeda. I mean, we've entered an Orwellian la-la land. But I want to get to what the ruling class, the offshore megacorporations that we pay the majority of our bailout taxpayer money to. I want to explain, when we hear USA is doing this, you mean the criminal elite that has a free hand to run wild. So what is their strategic plan? Just go ahead and start a major war from North Africa to Central Asia? Would that not be World War III? Would that not induce China and others to be involved?
Well, remember, their calculation is any independent nation state with any degree of autonomy is going to try to get out of the U.S. empire. So therefore, their goal is to destroy all existing nation states. I think it's time to rethink the whole issue of the nation state. In this chaos, any nation state just about is better than the chaos that you're seeing, for example, in Yemen, where you see a country that's now going into chaos and civil war. But let's take two leading examples. Saudi Arabia. Here we have the Washington Post of a couple of days ago, June 12th. We have an article by Prince Turki. This guy is the former head of intelligence. He's a top guy in the Saudi Arabian royal family. This is yet another ultimatum to the United States. He says, if the United States votes against, vetoes the creation of a Palestinian state in the United Nations, there will be disastrous consequences for U.S.-Saudi relations. And then he goes on to say, we Arabs used to say no to peace, and we got our comeuppance in 1967. Now it is the Israelis who are saying no. I'd hate to be around when the Israelis face their comeuppance. This is widely seen as one of the heaviest threats that the Saudis have put down. I would recall to people the last time I heard language like that, and you can read about this in my book, 9/11 Synthetic Terror. There is this statement from Saudi Arabia to the United States in August 2001, on the verge of 9/11. Then Crown Prince Abdullah sent a letter to Bush saying, we have come to the parting of the ways. We don't like your policies. We're going to go our way, and you go yours. And, of course, that was stopped by 9/11, one of the main goals of 9/11.
So we now enter the absolute prime zone, just like we had economic collapse, nothing compared to this, going up to 9/11. We're entering the prime zone for a pretext to launch the wars that they've all got lined up and now burning this is why we're launching the larger war. This is why the troops are going in. Then the domestic clampdown. They are now recruiting the Postal Service people to spy on you. The TSA's rolling out on the streets. You can really see how planned out this whole thing is.
To some extent, although the problem with the plan is the plan doesn't include the singularities that emerge. And now let's take another one. The other main country that is trying to break out of the empire that's been thoroughly integrated into it is, of course, Pakistan. And you remember here we had the Chinese issuing that ultimatum 3 weeks ago. If the United States attacks Pakistan, that will be interpreted by China as an attack on China. All right, how could China strike back? Well, there are hydrogen bomb missiles. That's less likely. But there's certainly a lot of treasury bonds. There are probably $2 trillion worth of treasury bonds. And there's cyber warfare. And we have now Panetta saying that the new Pearl Harbor is going to be a cyber attack. Now, looking at the Pakistani side of that, the Iranians, President Ahmadinejad of Iran, who is facing destabilization,
has just run off to meet with the Russians and the Chinese.
Well, that's the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. That's what people should be watching in the next couple of days. In other words, if there's going to be some kind of organized resistance against this rampage of the CIA and the British across the world, it's probably going to come from Astana, Kazakhstan, which is where you've got the meeting of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. But big deal is, the president of Iran says that he has specific credible intelligence that the United States is about to launch an attack on the Pakistani nuclear forces. Now, that by itself could be a war, a conflagration of tremendous
And you've been
proportions.
saying that for several years, and we have a lot of evidence to that. Dr. Webster Tarpley is our guest. I'm Alex Jones. This is the GCN Radio Network, GCNlive.com. Our sites are Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.tv. We'll be right back. Stay with us.